Okay. First of all, we have Chris Patterson. Dr. Patterson is the inaugural Digital Scholarship Coordinator at Knox College, where he leads digital transformation efforts and directs the Abolition for All Time Digital Humanities Lab. Before joining Knox, he was an IES Postdoctoral Fellow at the University of Iowa College of Education, working with the Scanlan Center for School Mental Health and teaching statistics in the Department of Psychological and Quant Foundations in our university. His research focuses on culturally responsive assessment, and his work was recognized through the Dare to Discover campaign at the University of Iowa. Thank you, Chris. Then here we have Dr. Ariel Aloe. He is the Interim Associate Dean for Research and a Professor of Educational Measurement and Statistics in the Department of Psychological and Quad Foundations here at the University of Iowa. His research focuses on meta-analysis and quantitative methods for synthesizing evidence in education and psychology. Dr. Aloe has published widely in leading journals and contributed to the Handbook of Meta-Analysis, advancing how researchers integrate and interpret empirical findings. Thank you, Dr. Aloe. We did it. We did our job. Finally, here with us is Dr. Jennifer Tittle. She is the Assistant Dean for Graduate Development and Postdoctoral Affairs at the University of Iowa. She leads campus initiatives to support graduate students and postdocs in professional development, career preparation, and mentorship. Dr. Tittle directs the Grad Success Center and has over a decade of experience fostering graduate student success. Again, thank you for being here. And to start with, well, we have 3 subtopics today, so we can talk about those different things, and we have some leading questions that can start the conversation. Those 3 subtopics are identifying and pursuing postdoc opportunities, best practices and common pitfalls in the application process, and key qualities of a strong postdoc candidate. So first of all, we could start with, what are some effective ways for recent graduates to identify postdoctoral positions that truly fit their research interest and career goals? Who wants to start? And I will copy and paste this question in the chat so you can have it there. Who wants to go first?
Because I make a quick comment about that. Do not wait until you graduate to be looking for a postdoc position. Usually, you know your timeline and when you may be defending your dissertation, and before that you hit that finish line, you should be proactive in looking for a possibility. In the real world, those 2 things would align. But if you wait until you graduate, you're not going to come from the time.
Thank you. Anything to add?
So I'm happy to add. I think there's always going to be some discipline specific places to look, places to share within your professional organizations, things like that. But I do want to highlight that ideally, long before graduation, you'd be also working on building the network and connections in your discipline that might help lead to that postdoc position. So I want to kind of take your question and say that I think for many of the most successful graduate students I've worked with that kind of land their ideal postdocs, they've often been thinking about this while they're still in their program. They've been proactively connecting with other researchers in their field through conferences, through collaborations, sometimes through introductions by their faculty mentors or their peers. And you've sort of taken up that mindset that it's okay to write somebody, to follow their work, to connect with them, sometimes on LinkedIn or another platform. And you're okay doing that. You're not shy to reach out and be building that network and those collaborations long before you graduate. You have to move from the mindset that it's transactional, like that it's just one thing you do at the end of graduate school, to this other kind of mindset of really, I'm building my long-term professional network. These may or may not be the individuals that provide that specific postdoc, my first opportunity after grad school, but I'm going to invest in them and in learning about their work, because it's very possible that it's a connection through them or somewhere else in your network that leads to that postdoc opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Tatel. Chris, something to add?
Yeah, I think the thing I would like to add is, for those of us who may, not be sure about whether or not we want to do a postdoc, that was very much my experience. I'm more than happy to talk about that. Right. I was so set in going in one direction, and I was like, oh, actually, maybe a postdoc is also a good idea, right? And then I ended up kind of taking a hard left in the final year of my PhD, and and wound up with a postdoc. And so, at that time, I didn't have the kind of the network underneath of me, because I was networking in a completely different place, because I thought that I had different goals. And so first, I just want to say it is okay that if your goals and ideas change, and it's okay if they're all over the place. After that, I think when you decide that you want to apply for a postdoc, yes, it's very important to get in touch with people as soon as you decide that you want to do that. So whether it is years in advance and you think that a postdoc is a good career step for you because you're already locked in and you know what's going to be there for the future, absolutely, start following people's work, start sending emails. One of the things that I did, which I know is more anecdotal than a generalization, is sending just cold emails about the postdocs themselves. So rather than connecting to someone being like, hey, you're in my network and we do, kind of similar research. Isn't that cool? Like, that is always really cool. And I think we as academics love to connect like that. And for me who didn't have a lot of time, who realized that I wanted to do a postdoc, it was who's hiring for the position. I'm just going to email them. And I think at the same time, one of the things that really benefits us as educational assessment or educational statistics scholars is that we know stats, right? And stats is everywhere. So if you're looking to build up stats experience within your postdoc, there are plenty of disciplines, right, that look for the type of work and the type of knowledge that we have. However, the important thing is to make sure that the type of work that you want to do is still aligned with that lab or with that supervisor, but not it can't be so narrowly focused where someone says, okay, so you're only applying to me because you do the exact same work I do, and that's all you're going to do. You're not going to try to do anything else. But also not so general where you say, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just give me the job, because then they're going to see no interest in you, because everyone wants a job for that reason.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, what you have mentioned makes sense, and I have a follow-up question. So that I think is related to this idea of networking, because how can networking, conferences, or informal contacts play a role in discovering postdoc opportunities? What do you think about that specifically? And I will paste that here again.
Do you want to start, Chris?
I can, but I saw that you ended up unmuting your mic after I said something, so I want to make sure that you get.
Sorry, I thought I interrupted you. Okay, I'm happy to talk. I was going to ask you, Chris, where specifically you looked, if that was before we go on to this question, was that in a disciplinary specific space, or was that in an open space? Where did you find the ads that you applied to?
Oh, yeah, great question. So, for us, for our field, pay attention to AERA, especially in well, all of the divisions that, in groups that we're in. Um, Taking a look at NCME, NCME will often post jobs. Sometimes those include postdocs, sometimes they don't. Um, those two, and also higher ed jobs is a pretty accessible site for a lot of PIs to end up posting their job posting too. So those are kind of the main three that I would look at for our field. Otherwise, if you're also a part of listservs, like email listservs, I would recommend that you sign up for some that are within your maybe like methods of interest or research inquiries of interest. There's a QuantCrit listserv. There's like SEM, IRT listservs, right? HLM listservs, and for all these different people who want to ask questions for their colleagues, but also to advertise positions.
That's great. I will build off of that to answer this question. And I'll just say that again, I'm encouraging everyone in this room to extend their practices earlier than graduation. So it may not be possible, you may change your mind, but all of these practices that are the informal networking, that will reward you whether or not you do a postdoc, a tenure track position, an industry role, and any of those roles. You can still be practicing the sort of informal networking through the, whether it's your AERA subprograms or, at a conference like that, or through Iowa and your mentors, sometimes even through past institutions where you've attended and people, that you see are connected there. All of those informal connections and commenting on people's work, connecting with people, following people. Again, you don't have to write a paragraph on somebody's work to follow it or connect with it or comment or say that you found it really interesting. You just have to change your mindset so that you are expressing these kinds of things. Not all academics do it, but it's an incredibly powerful tool to be comfortable saying like, hey, that was really interesting, or those methods, how did you do that? Just asking the question. Asking a question can be a powerful networking tool. So the way that those informal contacts work is once you have that loose, larger network, it's how do I put this? So people know what's going on with other people. So I always say, like, in a workplace, if you're interested in working at 3M or you're interested in working at some company, the people who are already working there know if somebody's going on maternity leave, if somebody is going to leave town, but maybe in a month, if somebody's going to potentially get a promotion. They don't know every detail, but people are kind of in the know of what's going around with other people. And so if you are connected informally and you say, and you reach out to somebody like, hey, I'm graduating in May. I don't know if you know of anything coming up in our field, but if you do, will you send it my way? They will be connected to their own informal network. They can draw on those people you've never met and potentially send you opportunities. So that's how the informal network works to your advantage. And people who have robust informal networks are some of the most successful people with navigating the career environment.
Wow, thank you.
Vladimir?
Yes.
I'm not a panelist, but may I add on to what was just said?
Yeah, sure.
Attend the same conference multiple times. You attend it one time, you meet some people. You go 2 or 3 times, you get to see the same people, which builds the relationship more than just a quick 5-10 minute acquaintance. Now you're seeing them over multiple years, and you can, just check up on, how are they doing? What have they learned? What are they studying? Whether it's fellow students working in their PhD program or those in the field, but just a one-off
is okay, but that relationship you build by seeing multiple times and it helps out.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Dr. Albert?
The only thing to add is that I heard the great piece of advice that you're receiving, but it's not unique for postdoc. Yes, it's the content of postdoc because the session that you guys organized today is about postdoc. But I would argue that this is true for any line of job that you might be interested. If you try to go to industry, academic, postdoc, listen to your mentor and check with your mentor about the connections and the people, because your mentor knows who's working on what and who may need someone. In some fields, you will not get a job in industry or job in academia if you didn't do a postdoc first. Our field is not necessarily like that. Yes, our field is more, for lack of a better word, flexible in that sense. Yes, many times if what you don't find is a good match in one of those, so you keep looking for the other ones. But I think that this great advice that you are hearing about networking, it holds for any position that you may be looking for.
Great.
I would add one thing to that. You should also consider when you understand the nature of the position that you're looking at, and again, this applies to more than simply postdocs, that there may be faculty that you know at Iowa who aren't your mentors, but who may well know or have connections with the people that are seeking the candidate list.
Yeah. Well, personally, I like what Dr. Tatel said about the mindset, because sometimes I feel shy about connecting with people. It is very hard sometimes just to say, hey, how are you? How to approach the other person. So thank you for that. Questions from the audience? Something you would like to ask? Yes, Yu Young?
I have silly questions. I have a question about the postdoc's job responsibility. I think postdoc is a kind of PI or extended graduate student. What is the job? Yeah.
I can react to that, and then I would let the rest of the panelists that too. Each postdoc is unique in how it's written. Yes, and some postdocs, like the one that Chris had, was federal funded. Other postdocs may be funded by a different source, or may be self-funded by a research center, or a unit with a university, or a private industry may be funded. So it's not only one position that is a postdoc. The postdoc can take different form. And it's up to you to be sure that the form of the postdoc is aligned with what is your next career goal. Yes, the postdoc what allow you to do is to keep developing and growing in one specific area that you may want to go. It's not necessarily the ultimate position that you will have. So you have to be sure that the description of what they are telling you that will be your task align with what you are intending to do after. Am I answering? Partially?
Comprehensive.
Yeah, it's not one single type of
Yeah,
postdoc.
yeah. Okay.
Like Chris got to teach when he was here. No one postdoc position allowed that. So you and some will expect you to do that. It depends a lot on the position, but let me stop there and let somebody else.
I like to think about that as like even a job with a similar title at different companies is going to look different, right? Like working as a psychometrician at MBME is going to look different than working as a psychometrician for ABS or for Edmentum, or for any place that hires a psychometrician. The very basics of the job may be the same. You might employ specific models, but the ways in which you employ those models might differ or have different implications, and you're going to be working with different people who have different agendas. Same exact thing with a postdoc. With a postdoc, you may be a postdoc within a lab that's set up by a PI, and your role is a psychometrician type of role, right? You may be a postdoc with one specific PI. You don't have a lab. It's just you and that mentor working together and collaborating on projects. You may have a postdoc like I did, that was just talked about, which was much more independent, and I had the opportunity to collaborate and do different things, as I saw fit with my career. They're going to look different, and the fun and just like what was said, the funding sources differ. A lot of places may already have money for the postdoc because the PI or that faculty member has already secured the grant money to hire someone. That's the typical case, right? There is money set aside for them to hire a postdoc, to develop in these areas to help out with this, to help out with this project or these select projects in their year, 2 years, 3 years. Other times you may think, you know what? I have the opportunity to maybe apply for my own funding, right? Like there are agencies at at the federal level. Well, we won't talk about the federal government, but at within institutions, within private research funds or private companies that say, hey, you apply to get money from us and you can go do your postdoc wherever you want to, but somebody has to be willing to mentor you. And so in that case, then it's, hey, I get to apply for this funding, right? So I, as the PhD student, have to go and apply. And if I win, that means I have to go and find someone in the field who is willing to supervise me, right? And so that is also a little bit different. Again, most of the time the funding is already there, but other times if you're like, ooh, actually I have an opportunity to apply for this money and kind of make my own journey out of it, you also have the opportunity to do that.
I'm just going to drop in there. This is just one of many sites, the UCLA GRAPE site, where you can use the filter postdoc. And there's others. Duke has a good one. Iowa actually has a very large kind of through Pivot opportunity for you to kind of hunt for postdocs. I wish there was one perfect site. There's a lot of different sites. This one I think is easy to use. And you can sometimes use this to track down grant fund, like individual opportunities where you can apply to kind of build your own postdoc, the way that Chris is explaining. And we do work with students on those all the time, particularly as they relate to the health fields. But then, just as you heard, postdocs can look every which way. I will say at our office, because we're centrally located and work with students across disciplines, it can be anything from a heavy teaching load to a very research specific load to an industry transition postdoc, like helping you move from academia to industry. Postdocs can look a lot of different ways. And then this is the second thing I'll share. I think because postdocs can look so many different ways, I think it's really important to go into your postdoc being really aware of you may not know the details of the skills you want to develop, but like Chris said, you want a complementary space that's not exactly what you've been doing, but maybe not too far afield from what you've been doing. And you want to make sure that during that time, you're really getting a chance to develop the skills that will help you on the next step after that postdoc. I know it's tiring to think about getting a postdoc and then also think about what you'll do after that postdoc. You want to just say, gosh, I just got here as a postdoc. I don't want to think about the next thing. But it's really important that you remember that your postdoc is a transitional space, is a skill building space to help you get ready for your next step.
Great, thank you. We will share the resources later in our email, so don't worry about it. Before moving to the next subtopic, do you have any additional questions? Any other specific thing you would like to hear or ask?
I have a question for Chris. When he did mention that do not advising us not to be very specific and not to be so broad in our search. So when we reach out a faculty member and we are asking for a postdoc position, so my question is how the postdoc position reshape the line of research after this transitional period?
That was for Chris, right?
For anyone.
Oh, for anyone.
I mean, I can speak some of my experience, and maybe that'll answer your question, maybe it won't. I don't know. I mean, so when I was applying to postdocs, I was really thinking about what is it that this faculty member does, like what's kind of their primary area of research. And then I basically asked myself, do I want to inherit that skill or deepen that skill? How much do I want to? Because if it's just I could just take a class and then move on, I'm going to be wasting my time working with this person when somebody else who has more interest in it than I do would be able to get the experience that they need, right? And it wouldn't be beneficial for me. So what do I want to learn from them? And what can I expand upon that is already present within the line of their work? So when I was applying, I didn't say, "Hi, I want to be your clone and do everything that you do," because that's already been done, right? Or at least the PIs that I've talked to, I'm not going to say all PIs, but the PIs that I've talked to when applying for postdoc positions, have really said like, I'm looking to deepen the work that I do. And so I need somebody who is willing to learn the skills that I have learned and researched over time, because now they're available so we can learn them quicker. But also think about what are the ways in which the things that I have researched or my lab has researched ties into other things, right? Or what are you interested in according to your interest in my research? So a lot of the applications that I sent out were I love the applications of your methods to test design. What if we did this with culturally relevant questions? Right? What would be the outcome of that? And then what are the implications for culturally responsive test development? And so that became a conversation where I could show them that I was familiar with the research that they did, and that I wanted to learn about the things that they know, but I also wanted to expand it in a way that showed them that I have my own research interests and I want to pursue those. And so doing those two things together will not only help you as a PI, but it will also help me develop in my own research line or my primary research line.
Would the other speakers want to add something?
The way Chris described that is perfect. It sounds like, Chris, you were building a bridge, building an argument almost, not in an argumentative way, but in an argument in an academic way to help the PI visualize how you would contribute and how your work meshes. It's like, Chris, you took on the weight yourself as the applicant of explaining how this could work, of mapping it out, of thinking it through. And so I think that is a very powerful way to write a PI or to, ask after a postdoc position. I will be honest, the other thing I have to say, I recently read a horror story of a PI talking on LinkedIn, and they said, somebody just wrote me. I mean, I get AI emails all day long. And she's like, I'm so used to them now that I don't even look. But she said, somebody just wrote me, and they didn't even bother to check. The AI had said, I loved your article, this and this and this. She said, I've never written this article. This is not a title of an article I've written. So they didn't even bother to check. the AI tool that, came up and she said, I felt so angry. I almost wanted to write the person back and be like, just please don't do this. Don't go spamming PIs with research funding by telling by putting this low effort piece forward. I think what most faculty want in this role is something very much like what Chris developed, which is something thoughtful where you've really thought about their work. And maybe you didn't know a lot about their work before the job ad came out. Maybe you learned about it in this job ad, but you've done your research on it. You see the fit. You've thought about your work and what you need, and you've kind of imagined the bridge and the path forward, and you're willing to give a little bit of information. It's not going to be a ton of information in that first reach out, but some information.
Thank you. Something you would like to add, Dr. Lord?
I don't have to comment about that.
Okay,
I have a question from
Mubarak, yeah.
So we're talking about the networking thing. I would like people who have postdoc experience to share how they think the networking that they build help them in getting the postdoc or the position they got. Because for some of us, it's really hard going from meeting someone and introducing yourself to them talking about I'm looking for a job or I'm looking for a postdoc. It's actually, for me, I struggle with that. I meet you, fine, we can have great discussion, but going from those great discussions to saying, oh, I'm looking for a job or I'm looking for a postdoc, are you hiring, do you know someone hiring? Those are kind of like tough conversations for, at least for me to have with people. And I would like to know, what was your experience? How did you move from introducing yourself to talking about jobs or postdoc, and then how did those networks help you in getting after a postdoc that you ended up getting?
I can start with an answer on that. I talk to students about just this topic really often, and the answer I'm going to give you is a little bit not intuitive, which is you're not going to be talking to them about how you need a job very much. That's not a very interesting topic of conversation. For most people, it's really scary because they maybe don't have a job for you and they're worried. They want you to like them too. And if they don't have a job to give you, they don't know how to interact with you. So you're going to move the conversation towards things about their research, things, just conversational things. How are they doing? Something as simple as the weather or what's going on, in their area of the country or what's going on with their family. So you're going to keep it mostly about connection and relationship building. Then, once you're at a point where you know when your graduation is, you know that in the next 6 months, 3 months, you're looking for a postdoc position, that's when you can drop them a note and say, hey, I hope everything's going really well with you this spring. I hope your family enjoyed that Cubs game because, you were in Chicago or whatever kind of thing. I'm reaching out just to let you know that I'm graduating in May. And looking around for opportunities. If you see anything or if you see anything in your network, I would very much appreciate a share wishing you a good weekend. So you can do this by and it's easier yet on LinkedIn, but you can let your network know at a later date that you're looking or that you're seeking opportunities. But you never need to reach out if they haven't advertised at all that they have an opportunity and you have, you can always ask them if you or somebody has an opportunity, could you send it my way? That kind of thing. But you don't want to do a lot of direct asking people for opportunities, which again, it's one of those strange American academia things. But people get very nervous, I would say, across the board when people are asking, do you have a job for me? Which is truly what you want to say. You want to be like, do you have a job for me? Because I need a job. Moving on if you don't, but you want to avoid that and instead put it in this other kind of what I would say, more relationship-based language. Yeah, go ahead.
Mike.
I would just say, when you go to a conference, don't sit with your friends.
It's a great tip.
Well,
Yeah.
you see somebody you don't know, obviously there's some level of interest that's the same. Go sit down with them like during lunch. You know, cause you like usually it's a lunch or some sort, you go sit with them at lunch, you just talk about them, you say, hey, I'm going to Iowa, I'm studying this. And then you say, hey, I'd like to know a little bit about you, and you know, just exactly what was just said, you know, a very casual, nice conversation. And maybe some other people might join me. I mean, that's how you meet people. If all you're going to do is sit with your people that went to the conference with you, you may as well just stay home. I mean, seriously, if all you're going to do is talk with the people you know, stay home. If you want to learn to network, that's when you go to the conference, you go to other people, and then when you get back, then you can say, hey, I talked to so and this other person, and you can compare notes. Now, instead of learning about, you know, the people you know, now you've learned about maybe 20 people because you're sharing experiences.
Follow up with them after the conference. You can follow up and connect with them, or some sort of small thing. Hey, it was great to meet you at that conference. I hope you enjoyed the game. And just focus on not wanting something out of the relationship as much as just building the relationship. And then later, when something comes up, you can adjust at the time, but you want to kind of keep the relationship piece going first.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, go on. Sorry, Chris. Go on.
okay. You know, there was a piece of advice that I was told a long time ago. This was during kind of the beginning of my PhD years, and I kept it with me whenever I was networking with someone. Generally, especially if I knew later on, I knew that I was going to need a job, just generally, no matter if it was a postdoc or anywhere else. Because again, for me, I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I did a lot of exploration. Um, if you know that you want to do something in academia, and you're starting to network with people and you don't know how, I usually have like two or three things that I approach someone with, right? Obviously, like who you are, right? What institution you're from, and what do you study. Ask them, or well, sorry, not ask. Comment on a piece of work that was recently published by them, and then ask them a question about what the future direction of that research is. It gets them to see who you are. It gets them to understand that you have read something from them and that you understand it. Or maybe you just have a question about that piece, and that's okay too. And then it shows them that you are somebody who is thinking and engaging with the work in ways that could contribute something more. And it could be something that they have thought about, and maybe they've written a different paper about it later, you know, kind of responding to their own paper. It could be a question that they've been thinking about already. It could be a brand new question, and they're like, oh, I haven't thought about that before. But either way, that is going to send them a signal that you are engaging with them in ways that like a brand new colleague would, right? And not a hi, I need a job, thank you. Because I mean, just like Jen said, most of them are already know that when they end up going into a conference, almost like any faculty member in general going to a conference is going to expect to run into people to be like, "Hi, I'm networking because I need a job," and that's totally valid. I did the exact same thing. I was like, "Hi, I just want like a salary and like health benefits. If you have that, that would be great." Um, and at the same time, the most successful interactions I had were with folks whose work I studied before the conference, because I was able to go up to them a little bit more confidently, still nervous, but a little bit more confidently, and saying, "Hey, I think I understand some of the work that you do, or at least a recent paper that you did and how it aligns with kind of the research that you've been doing. I want to ask you some questions about your work. Can we do that while we're here at the conference?" And then there's a follow-up afterward, or after the conference, say, "Hey, thanks so much for that talk. Like, I feel like I have even more questions. And I would love to be able to connect with you about it sometime. So even if it's a quick turnaround in which you need a job, just like Jen said, don't focus it on the job. I would say just like Jen said, most people are going to be like, if I don't have a job, I'm really sorry. And that also shows that you don't know what's on the market, right? If you go to the right people who have jobs, that shows intentionality. Because all of those people talk to each other because they're all trying to hire the same people. So yeah, so make sure that you're really intentional when you network with folks who you even think that you want to work with in the future. And I had something else in my brain and it went away, but I think that's probably the more important thing of the things I was going to say.
Thank you, Chris.
I have a comment about that.
Yeah.
I think that his advice on this one is excellent. You know, when I go to conference and you guys know I haven't been in one in a couple of years, but I have people coming to me and be like, "Oh, I love your work. Oh, your paper was great." I don't remember those people. I will be honest. But when somebody comes and says, "You know, I read your paper and I keep thinking about blah. I wonder why you did blah. And or can you talk to me more about blah from the paper?" There are times that I'm like, "Oh, you know, I will have to get back to you because I don't even remember blah right now. So please give me your contact information." And that already put that person in my mind because they pay attention to my work in a way that when you write the paper, you hope that somebody brings it. Yes, but when somebody actually follow up with you, it triggers a different synopsis in your brain that you remember that. So don't be hesitant to approach people and, as Chris said, being intentional. Don't be the groupie or the rock star. Yes, most people don't want that. Yes, but so have a reason to talk to someone. Yes, and it's something that my former mentor told me when I was a grad student. And you can keep it or leave it. Yes, because it's quite ambitious. And most of you know who my mentor was, and some of you glad to meet her. When I started grad school, she told me, your goal is for people to come to talk to you in conference, not for you to talk to them. And the way that you will achieve that is by doing good work and be sure that you are presenting, be sure that you are publishing, be sure that you do things that people will come to you to talk about your work. And I was looking at her like she was crazy, yes, because it's quite intimidating. But even if you don't fully do everything that you want, to be present by giving talks, by doing things that people notice that. Yes, and with time, people also notice the people that go to a conference every year and hang out, and the people that are going every year and giving full talks about new stuff, or recycling the same talk every time. You guys will start noticing that. You will be going into conference long enough and you will be like, "Oh, I saw that this person was doing really cool thing, but I heard the same talk for the last 5 years in some different angle." Yes. So it takes time for you to get a sense of that. But what Chris recently mentioned is a key element. Okay, so please be intentional. And I also like Shell's idea of don't go to us for a show. It's not just that Americans don't like it. Nobody likes it. I will understand this geographically. Most people don't like to be asked for a show. But if they find what you are saying or doing or your interaction meaningful, if they have a show, they will invite you to apply. Because it's in their best interest to have a pool of applicants. So, by you putting yourself out there and just talking to them, it's very likely that they have a job, they will invite you to apply.
Thank you. Wow, time flies. We just have 10 minutes. I don't want to Oof. I wanted to say something, but yeah, we have just 10 minutes. I don't want to waste your time. Yes,
Yes.
that's what I wanted to say. So one of the questions that I would like to ask next, related to our second topic, is something related to what to do and what not. The question is, based on your experience, what are some best practices for preparing a strong postdoc application, and what common pitfalls should early career researchers avoid? Based in that question. Who wants to start?
I can try to give some advice. We'll see. I would say, I mean, things that I was told that I enacted that I believed helped me. We'll frame it that way. Is and this is also coming from somebody who just finished the hiring process of hiring somebody to work for me, just generally. Generic letters are really easy to spot. Don't make a generic cover letter or a generic CVs are supposed to be generic because they cover like everything that you do. But don't make it generic where it's like, hi, I'm getting a PhD in educational statistics. I know methods, therefore you should hire me. With love, Chris. You don't want to do that, right? Because your PI or that hiring person will automatically see what you're trying to do, right? That is the application equivalent of you going up to people at conferences saying, "Hi, I would really like a job. If you could give me a job, that would be great." Right? Those are the exact same thing. One is just in person and the other is in written form. I would say within those application materials, right? I won't really talk about the interview part. But in the application materials, when you're actually putting through a cover letter and a CV, and I said this a little bit earlier, but I'll rephrase it. Balance independence with collaboration. Don't go in saying, I am the most independent person and you will never ever have to worry about me ever because I'm just going to be doing my own work. Well, that's not necessarily what a PI wants to hire, right? A PI, when they're hiring a postdoc, they understand that they are going to be, or they should understand that they're going to be in a place to be training somebody, right, to eventually take up a faculty position or an industry position, right? And in that sense, they are training somebody that they might end up working with as an equal collaborator in the future. And so I don't think anybody wants to work with anybody that says, hey, I'm going to hire you, but we're never going to speak to each other. And what we do is completely different and we're not aligned at all. At the same time, you can't just say, well, I'm completely a team player and I'll just do whatever you want me to, because that then does not show that you have your own goals, your own research, and really anything interesting about you, right? That's again just saying, hi, give me a job, I'll do whatever you want. So again, being able to in your materials be able to say, I understand what this research is aiming to do, and in that process, I can also do some extra things on my own that are also really interesting that will contribute to not only the team's findings, but will also help me establish my own research line. I would say those were the big kind of things that you should do. Otherwise, I think the things that you really shouldn't do is, well, besides the things I already said, is just waiting too long. Due to the nature of academia and just higher education industry in general, and with the fall of tenure track positions and the job market for faculty, a lot of folks are trying to get postdocs to make themselves more competitive for tenure track faculty positions. So when you enter in as a postdoc now, it's not just, oh, it'll be you and maybe like 2 or 3 other people in the field, that maybe have this interest. And, while other folks may be doing tenure track and other folks are going to industry, it's just a different path to something. Oh no, a postdoc has become, like do a PhD, then a postdoc, then you become faculty. So everyone is now competing for postdocs. So if you wait too long, that application pool is going to fill up and it's going to close early.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll just point out that you could hear Chris, as he was talking, doing the same thing that he talked about before. He's really delicately laying out an argument as to why his goals actually also match the faculty member's goals. Faculty member wants a curious, engaged postdoc to mentor into the discipline. Chris wants to be a curious, engaged person coming into the discipline. And he's laying out his argument as he speaks, and I assume as he writes in that cover letter and CV. I'll only add, absolutely, you don't want boilerplate generic content in that cover letter. You want to do your research in advance and really figure out a lot about that, that project if you can, or lab, or site, or researcher. The more you can kind of, even that institution where the postdoc is located, and really read that ad. Because again, postdocs, like we talked about, are different from each other. Make sure that what you're saying is aligned to this postdoc, not some other postdoc that you've applied for. So make sure you're really aligned to that. Make sure your CV is in good shape, fits your disciplinary norms, and that somebody has had a look at it, so that you don't have little errors, not because little errors don't mean you're not intelligent, but because they're distracting. If you have little errors in your CV, it's distracting for anybody reading it. They're just noticing that things are not aligned, or they're noticing your odd use of capitalization. And you don't want them to notice anything except your work.
Thank you. Okay, great. Well, we just have 4 minutes left. I have more questions, but in the audience, something that you would like to ask or hear again, or something to add? The last minutes, Mike?
Always remember, anytime you're applying for anything, it's a two-way street. When you are, let's say that you land an interview with somebody to get a postdoc position or a position, you need to make sure that you will fit well within the institution. Go prepared to ask them questions. If you leave and you've never didn't ask them any questions, never ask salary, if you don't have any questions for them, that doesn't look good. But make sure that you ask them some questions, because that shows that you're trying to make sure that you're going to be in a spot that you're going to be there 3, 5, whatever years. Not, I'm going to hate the next year or two just trying to get my experience, because that will lead a poor taste in their mouth, and they won't make a good reference. But if you work for someplace 3 to 5 years, you've had a good experience, maybe you find a different opportunity, maybe they'd be willing to help you on your journey as you go on your professional career.
Thank you. So, well, 1 hour is nothing to talk about. This time flies when you're having fun, right?
But it's just an experiment.
Dr. Title, something you would like to say? So you raise your hand.
I just want to leave you with one thought. I know I had a question
Yeah.
about networking earlier, and I don't want to underplay that networking is really hard, and it feels stressful, and it makes not just you anxious, but almost anybody doing it anxious. You can feel a little bit of stress. And so I often tell students, if you've ever, learned a new skill, like working out, and you're, maybe you're working out to start, and, at first you can only do 10, reps twice with a, I don't know, 20-pound weight or whatever. You just you want to get in the reps. So you choose, whatever that is. I am going to join LinkedIn and I'm going to network 5 times, whatever that looks like for you. Or I'm going to go to this conference and I'm going to each breakfast sit with an entirely new group of people. I can't do it all day, but I'm going to sit with a new group of people at breakfast each day. But you choose your reps, just like when you were learning to work out those new muscles. You're going to make that decision. You're going to say, I'm going to do this many times. I know it's not going to be pleasant. It doesn't have to be pleasant. I'm just going to practice it. And with practice, it gets more easy. It gets a little easier. It doesn't always get easy, but it gets easier and more fluid and more light. And you start to feel a little bit better about it. So I just want to acknowledge it makes sense. It's hard. It's really, really hard for a lot of folks, but it's a skill and you can learn it.
Thank you, Dr. Title, Dr. Patterson, Dr. Aloy. Thank you so much for your time. This was a great session, and you will find the video on YouTube later so you can watch it again. Thank you so much for your time.